I always like to say the sheep have 2 glasses of wine with dinner, right? It becomes a habit forming. There's an old saying, you know, you create a habit and then the habit creates the man, right? And so we get engaged in these conforming type behaviors at a very young age, and it's societal produced. It's just based on your experiences, who you're around, the way you were raised. And if you want to achieve great things, you got to do things differently.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. So good that you're joining us today. This is Russell Anderson. I'm sitting here with the author, Jerry Freishtat, of the wonderful book, Run with the Cheetahs, Your Climb to an Extraordinary Life. This is episode 2 of our podcast. And Jerry, I got to say, people say that they get better as you go along. I don't know if we can top number 1. Number 1 was pretty good, wasn't it?
Yeah, things went pretty well. I think people got a lot of content out of that and a lot of useful things they can kind of put to work right away.
Absolutely. Well, we've got a fantastic powerhouse show today that even includes a special guest that's going to come in a little bit, a gentleman by the name of Clif Brooks. I can't wait to introduce you to him. Fabulous guy. So, Jerry, the title of this book, Run with the Cheetahs, Your Climb to an Your Climb to an Extraordinary Life. Can you tell us what an extraordinary life is?
Well, let's start out with just a real simplistic definition. It's the constant evolution and growth of oneself, which includes the endless pursuit of exceptionalism. So in order to live an extraordinary life, you need to pursue exceptional things. Notice I said pursue. Not all efforts are rewarded with results, but all efforts are rewarded with growth. So the relentless pursuit of anything meaningful is never a loss.
Well, every word of that is just fantastic. I mean, I love that you say everything about is growth. Every pursuit ends up growth, even if you don't end up at your final goal. There's growth along the way, correct?
That is absolutely correct.
I love the word climb and I love the word pursuit because they evoke positive change. And I think that this entire podcast, that's what we're talking about, folks. We're talking about positive change, how to make positive change in your life, positive change in your relationships, positive change in your health, positive change in your work. And that's what we're talking about. That's what this is all about. I used a quote last time in our episode number 1. I'm going to read it again. It was from Maya Angelou. And Maya Angelou says, do the best you can until you know better. And when you know better, do better. And that's what we're all about here on this podcast, is learning how to do better so that we can all grow and pursue that exceptionalism that Jerry's talking about. Jerry, chapter 2 of your book is called The Dream Stealers. And it's all about what's holding us back. I mean, the question you ask people is, ever felt like you were meant for more, but something keeps holding you back? Well, what is it that holds people back from being their best self? I think you've got a quote there you want to
Yeah,
bring up.
exactly. This great quote from Viktor Frankl. It basically says that when a person can't find a deep sense of meaning, they distract themselves with pleasure. And when people get comfortable and things kind of just in their lives stay on an even keel and they stop pursuing, stop dreaming, stop growing, they find themselves needing to distract themselves because they don't have any meaning on anything that they're working on. So the human psyche is propelled from achievement. And without constant growth, constant visions, dreams, goals, and achievements, you generally will fall into a distracting type escapism.
And Jerry, you mentioned this last week in our podcast. You said the unfortunate part about not pursuing is that you end up with some regrets. And I did a little research. I wanted to know what sort of things people are regretting. And I went to the Googles for this, deep investigative research, went to the Googles. And here's what I came up with. People regret not pursuing their passions, number one. Number two, not nurturing relationships. Number three, not taking care of their health. Number four, not saving or investing wisely. Number five, staying in comfort zones. And number six, not learning or growing. Now, by the way, there were plenty more things people live to regret as they get older, but those were those were the top six that showed up in almost every poll that I looked at. And, that's what we're trying to avoid here. We're trying to really keep the positive change going towards your goals. So, dream stealers, how about you tell your story before we list out what the dream stealers are? How about you tell your story? You had a dream stolen from you one time.
Yeah, well, basically, when you're younger and inexperienced and you have failures and things, you have a tendency to just to view them as failures, right? When failure is just an opportunity to learn something. Unfortunately, most of us don't understand that or get the full impact of that until we're probably in our 40s and 50s. So, to understand that at a young age, I mean, if you look at some of the greatest, people that have achieved things at a young age, I'm a huge sports guy. Just take like Tiger Woods or Kobe Bryant. Some of these elite athletes. They were mature beyond their years, and they understood that every failure was just an opportunity. So, I played golf at the University of Maryland on a Division I scholarship, and I got, was doing well, and things were moving along. However, at the same time I was doing that, I was just fully engaged in the, party lifestyle, the short-term gratification of, girls, drinking, drugs, whatever, and at the same time I'm dreaming of playing on the PGA tour. Well, that creates a situation called incompatible goals. I'm pursuing two different things, and neither one of those two is going to win in the long run. And the reason that's a dream stealer is that, had I had a better understanding at a younger age about, that all things that are, require long-term growth and success take a long time. They take commitment and dedication. Well, obviously, if you're into short-term gratification things, those things are not the things that require to dig into the trenches and get that work done. So it's real important for young people to understand that even though that carrot's dangled out there every day in front of you to go out and have a good time and everything else, the long-term true growth of your potential is in the hard work.
Well, you didn't become a PGA player, but I believe your golf game was still pretty good for quite a while.
Yeah, did very well. But the thing is that looking back now, I certainly did not reach my potential.
Yeah.
Too many distractions, too many incompatible goals.
And so I would say that that dream stealer is probably number one on your list of four. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, well, I mean, anybody that, detracts, drugs and alcohol is the ultimate escape for people. I always like to say the sheep have two glasses of wine with dinner, right? It becomes a habit forming. There's an old saying, you know, you create a habit and then the habit creates the man. Right. And so we get engaged in these conforming type behaviors at a very young age, and it's societal produced. It's just based on your experiences, who you're around, the way you were raised. And if you want to, achieve great things, you got to do things differently.
Wow. Well, in a little bit, we're going to bring Clif Brooks in here, and Clif Brooks is going to, he's going to tell you how it is when it comes to alcohol, as well as many other things too. He's an amazing guy. But I'll share my little dream stealer here, and then we'll articulate what the four dream stealers are that you say in your book. I had a dream. I wanted to be a jazz trumpet player. I started playing the trumpet in the fifth grade. I guess I'm 10 or 11 at that point. And, I just had a natural aptitude for it. I was good. I wasn't a prodigy, wasn't that kind of good, but I was good. And that continued on through middle school. It was junior high school back then. And it continued on into high school. I mean, by the time I got to high school, I was first section, first chair from day one. That's just how it was. I just had that ability, and it came natural to me. I did not work very hard at it, which will end up being the problem here in a bit. So I get a music scholarship myself, go away to school. First year I get there, and there's a couple of guys that play. Nobody's crazy good. You know, we're all, two or three of us are all about the same level. And we go through the year. I didn't like that school, so I transferred out for the second year. And the second year, I get with some guys, and once again, it's about the same situation. We're all at about the same level. No one's really killing it. And, I was really hoping that I was going to be around guys that were way better, so I would really have to be pushing. Well, in the third year, these same guys that I had been playing with, they were getting better, and I wasn't. And these guys, I mean, every couple of weeks, they were doing things that they'd been working on, and I wasn't getting it done. And the real problem here, and it took me a bit to really understand this, was I'd never learned how to practice. I had never developed the practice habit. And by the way, I see this in sports all the time. People think that if you're a baseball player and you're just getting out on the field, you're practicing. That's not practice, that's playing. If you want to practice something, just like I'm sure Clif will tell us about working out, and Jerry, you're a workout guy, there's a routine. You work out. I mean, there is a habit to getting better. I didn't have any of that. And so after as my third year of college kind of concluded, I gave up that dream, and it was terrible. I would have fought somebody if they'd told me I wasn't going to be a jazz trumpet player up until the end of that, but I just never developed the habit. Now, I will tell you the upside of this story, just like you say, there's growth in these things. The upside of this story is that after that, I decided I'd never let anybody outwork me. And that carried into I changed over to business in my fourth year. That carried over into my professional career. And for most of my professional career, I was a hard charger, wasn't going to let anybody outwork me. And so there was some positive that came out of that. And by the way, I still do play the trumpet a little bit, but it's pretty nasty. I mean, So, Jerry, let's go ahead and articulate what these four dream stealers are.
Let me just comment on what you just said.
Sure,
Real
sure.
important, Russell, because it gets back to that definition I started it with. The relentless pursuit of anything meaningful is never a loss. You said you took that pursuit of being a great jazz trumpet player and you rolled that into your business career, your professional career, and it also taught you never to be outworked. So that is, again, when people view it wasn't a failure, it was a step to the next ladder on your life.
Yep. And Jerry, you're absolutely right. I look back at that lesson and am grateful. I mean, I
Yep,
look back
that's
at
right.
that lesson and am very grateful but at the time, it wasn't a happy scene at the time.
Yep.
So, you talked about drugs and alcohol as one of the dream stealers, which is number one in your book. Number two is poor habits. And I think I just articulated that one pretty well. Number three is bad relationships and people. And, down the road, we're going to get into this a little deeper. And number four is yourself. And as a matter of fact, Jerry, I just saw a social media thing where you said the biggest dream stealer is yourself. You want to go off on that just for a minute?
Yeah, I mean, again, it comes back to the, whether you're, in the hierarchy of humans, whether you're a snake, a sloth, or a sheep, all of those mentalities are essentially, designed to undermine yourself. And, if for people that, are in that mode and they think that, success is for other people, they take a kind of a victimized mentality. And the second you become a victim to anything, which is caused by lack of accountability, you essentially become a detriment to yourself. And all of us have a little bit of that, right? So, we need to first understand that, again, awareness and knowledge is the key to breaking out of anything. That, that's where it starts, and then the actions to do that. But most people um, are self-defeating. Their self-talk to themselves is very negative. I mean, we speak to ourselves, all day, every day. I forgot about the number of subconscious thoughts a day, but it's somewhere like 50, 60,000 subconscious thoughts we have. Well, 60% of those are negative in the average person. And here's another fact about that. We say the same things to ourselves every single day. It
Yeah.
rarely changes. So the only way that's going to change is with growth, evolution, and education. And most people are a detriment to themselves, and fall into that conforming, comfortable lifestyle that they tell these lies to themselves. They think that this is what was designed for me, when nothing could be further from the truth.
And Jerry, with every bit of research being very clear about how all of us are underperforming our potential. None of us are fully reaching our full potential. We have so many miles to go, and we intellectually know that. But why do we sabotage ourselves physically and mentally? Why do we engage in self defeating behaviors?
Well, it's it's a natural part of the human process because humans were emotional beings, right? So we are going back to our, early existence. We're designed to survive, right? So once we survive, everything else becomes essentially a luxury. It's the world of, you know um, abundance that we live in that makes people feel like they can't live up to what that level is. So when you can't live up to what is apparently, who you compare yourself to, and all these things that are out there on social media and everything else, the natural tendency is to want to escape that feeling. And escaping that feeling is mostly done with self sabotaging behaviors. That's why people engage in drugs and alcohol. you know, any poor habit, that you have on a daily basis, diet, could be, anything else that's really bad. And another huge one that people engage in to escape is just bad relationships. You're going
Yeah.
to be who you're around. And, the most elite successful people, one thing I learned over the years is that there sometimes it's a little lonely up there because you're in a group of the 1/10 of 1% of people, and there's not too many people out there in that category. So but the better you feel about yourself, the less likely you're going to self-sabotage yourself, and then the better you feel about yourself, the less likely you're going to not to want to be alone with yourself.
Fantastic stuff. Well, Jerry, it's time. It's time for me to bring in our special guest, Mr. Clif Brooks. And I'm just going to say a few words about Clif before we bring him into the studio here. You introduced me to Clif. I met Clif at one of your meetings, actually. And I, I will be honest with you. I don't think I've met anybody in the past year, and I've only met this man one time. But I do follow him. I follow all his socials. I've spoke to him on the phone a couple times, and this is the truth. I don't think I've met anybody in the past year that I have been as enamored with and impacted by one individual as Clif Brooks. This guy is a powerhouse. I mean, his messaging is so spot on. Clif Brooks is a personal trainer. He's got a lot of different programs. I'm going to put all of his socials in the show notes. But this is a guy that just me following him on Facebook, let me just say this, because he tells it like it is. He brings you the real deal on on fitness, on nutrition, on alcohol, on just about anything. I mean, he tells it like it is. I've got to tell you, he has already impacted me. And, I'm teetering on the brink of whether I want to join his program or not. And by the way, the reasons that I would not join his program hit every one of these dream stealers. And one day we'll talk about it. But Clif, come on in here and say hello to everybody.
Russell and Jerry, thank you so much for having me on today. I really appreciate you guys bringing me on your podcast. Jerry, I've known you for years. Justin and I are good friends, and I have nothing but the utmost respect for you. And Russell, just meeting you recently and just being able to communicate with you and talk with you and find out more about you and the business that you guys are running. Really excited to be here and what I can add to the conversation today.
Well, Cliff, I tell you what, before I turn you loose, because I know once you get going, it's like a rail car. I'm going to bring up a picture. I'm going to bring up a picture of you. This is my favorite picture of you. This is a picture, and you know the picture I'm talking about, Cliff, and we can't see it right now, but this is a picture of Cliff looking like somebody's normal college roommate. I mean, he looks just like a normal guy. And then right next to it is the chiseled, cut up Clif Brooks that is the personal trainer. And when I look at that before picture, I almost say to myself, no, nobody can go from there to there. But you do. And you've been a personal trainer for 25 years. We would love to hear a little bit about your business. But the question of the day today is, what holds people back, Cliff? So, you answered this for me briefly a week or so ago, but what do you think holds people back? And you can talk about it in general, or you can talk about it as specific to your business and the goals that your clients are trying to reach. Talk to us.
Well, the number one thing that holds people back, in my opinion, other people could think it's different ways, is they just don't believe in themselves. And if they don't believe in themselves, they're not going to attempt to lose the weight. Now, the reason why they don't believe in themselves has nothing to do with who they are as a person. It's a learned behavior. So if you've been trying to lose weight, let's say someone has 10, 20, 30 pounds to lose weight. Over the course of their life, they've probably lost 100 pounds, but it's the same 10 pounds over and over and over again because they're doing what does not work. And they're so used to doing maybe 5 things that they've tried, and it's what they've got in their mind that this is how you're supposed to lose weight because of what they see on social media, what they see on their friend, or they hear their friends talking about. They just believe that this is what you have to do. But the fitness industry is set up in such a way that they don't want you to lose weight, because if you were to lose weight, then this whole industry would implode. But it's a multi-billion-dollar a year industry because people are always trying to take these shortcuts, these quick fixes, these crash diets in order to lose the weight so they can feel good about themselves. But when they do it, let's say they do a 6-week challenge, they put a goal, a finish line at the end of the 6 weeks instead of it being just a pit stop, a check-in with themselves so they continue this lifestyle. So after 6 weeks, they quit, go back to their old habits, and then they are so surprised, like, oh, I tried that diet, it doesn't work. No, not really. If you lost the weight, you proved to yourself it works. You just didn't have the skills to keep the weight off long term, and that's the biggest issue. Most people, they are able to prove that something works for them, but they don't change their entire lifestyle. And that's the whole identity piece that people don't get. You have to understand that your life needs to change here, and then your life has to change here in order for you to have long-term success. And that is also, when I was telling you, it's part of the ego. So a lot of people, what is the word I'm looking for? They try to wear a badge of honor that they did their health and fitness on their own, that they didn't have to ask for help. But what makes more sense? Asking for someone to help you, and in 6 months, a year, you lose all the weight and transform your life, or you struggle for the next 5, 6, 7, 10 years trying to lose the same amount of weight you could have lost in 6 to 12 months if you had asked for help. Most people, when I talk to them, because I work with a lot of business owners, and they're like, well, I think I'm going to try it again on my own. It's like, okay, so if your company was in the red and you knew that if you didn't do something, you were going to shut the doors, would you try to get on your own, or would you hire a consultant? Well, I would absolutely hire a consultant. Cool. So let me ask you, if we look at your body as a business and your body being overweight and out of shape, would you say that it's in the red or in the black? Oh, it's definitely in the red. Okay. So I would be that consultant that you would hire to help you change this and get back into health so you can actually do more with yourself. You have more energy, more focus, more drive because you are now you're eating properly. Now your body's getting the nutrients that it wants. You're getting better sleep. You're able to show up more powerfully at work and get more done. But that's just the business aspect. When you do that, you absolutely make more money. I watch all my clients do it all the time. But at home, now you're more present with what you're doing. You're spending time with your family, putting healthy meals together, and what you're learning, you're teaching your kids. So it's like if you were to take a rock and throw it into a lake, a calm lake, you would see that ripple when the rock hits the lake and then it spreads all the way out. That's you, your wife, or your husband, your kids, your grandkids. All it takes is one person to create a new healthy branch on your family tree. And I personally am that one person in my family. Everyone else in my family is overweight. My father died from a stroke. My mom has diabetes. And, and my extended family is the same way. But because they've known me since I was a little child, they look at me as always being that little child and they're going to do what they want to do. And unfortunately, my dad never listened, always told me that tomorrow I'll start eating better. Monday, I'll start working out until he had a stroke in his brainstem from his high blood pressure because he never had the opportunity he had the opportunity. He just never did what the doctors told him to do.
Yeah.
He was too busy running his business. He was too busy with his job in the government that he hadn't left yet. But while he was burning the candle on both ends, he thought he had to sacrifice his health in order to grow his company. And my stepmother found him face down on the bathroom floor with the shower running and immediately took him to the hospital. He was rushed to the hospital. When he got there, he was taken directly into the ICU ward. And they made him a VIP in ICU. And by the time I got there, he had a ventilator tube stuck in his mouth because he couldn't breathe on his own.
How
I
old was he,
watched.
Cliff?
He was
How old was he?
56 years old.
Wow.
He had a lot of life left.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Cliff, on the another just quick question for you here. So on the jumping back to the weight loss and the fitness thing and everything else, I from my experience, and just want to get your input on this, is people view all those things as a destination. I got to lose 50 pounds. And they never, ever get in the mindset of, oh, what happens after I lose the 50 pounds? So one of the things that, is part of my Dream Stealers chapter is that you need to get obsessed with escapism behaviors that are good for you, not escapism behaviors that are bad for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just wanted to get your input on, with your clients, have you had people that, can overcome that? Like, let's say you had somebody lose 50, 60, 100 pounds, whatever it might be. Have they evolved into that new obsessive lifestyle of fitness, nutrition, and generally, by the way, when they do that, everything else in their life changes too. They get better relationships. They're 100% statistical fact. Healthy people make more money. I mean, I don't know if you've ever looked that up, but it's an incredible statistic. So, have you had people that have followed through, and what would you say is the difference that made that happen?
Well, the number one difference is people just need to understand that it's no one else's fault. You got to stop blaming your kids. You got to stop blaming your career for being busy. You have to stop blaming your significant other. You and you alone are responsible for the way that you look in the mirror. And you're responsible for your daily actions. You're responsible for the food that you eat. Nobody is holding a gun to your head and telling you have to eat this slice of pizza. You are making an intentional decision every day. And those decisions are what causes you to get to the place that you're in. And then once you stop playing the victim, oh, I can't do this because my significant other put ice cream in the freezer and they know I love ice cream. No, you have a choice whether you say, yes, I'm going to eat the ice cream or no. And once you stop blaming other people and you take 100% responsibility for your life and where you're at, you can make a difference and change. Because once that victim mentality goes away, now and you're 100% responsible, even though it may not be your fault, it's your responsibility in order to get to where you want to be. So once they have that mindset shift that this is on me, it's no one else's fault but my own. Now we have a breakthrough, and now we can actually put things into place that will allow them to realize that if no one's coming to save me, I have to save myself. And then they have that shift and they are able to start. And I teach them to focus on just winning today. That whole, I got to lose 50 pounds. It's like looking up at a big mountain and they're like, how do I climb this mountain? Well, one step at a time.
Yep.
So I tell people, win today. I have a win the day journal that they do, a small checklist of the things that they should do each day. And as you're checking it off, you win the day. So a small step taken every single day becomes a long distance traveled over time. And that's how they end up climbing that mountain that they need to lose the 50 pounds with. It's not because most people will look at the end goal and it's so completely overwhelming because they've tried so many different things that haven't worked, when in reality, it's usually the thing they're not doing everything that they should be correctly. And they blame it on the diet. But if one man or woman has used that diet or workout or lifestyle before and it's worked, it's proof that it will work. It's just you're not putting the necessary effort into it.
Yeah, that reminds me of that Martin Luther King quote, "You don't need to see the whole staircase, you just need to take the first step."
Absolutely.
Yeah,
That's
I like
exactly
I
right.
like the
Yep.
line "win today." Is it win the day or win today? Do you know?
Win. Win the day. Win
Win
the
the
day.
day.
All I want you to
Fantastic.
do is just check off
Yep.
the boxes of what you need to do today.
Yeah.
Don't focus on tomorrow because that'll make you anxious. Don't worry about yesterday or last week or the other times you may not have been successful because that's just going to make you depressed. Just focus on what you have to do today.
Well, I want you to change gears now. That's all great stuff. But I've heard you talk about the problems and the catastrophes in some cases of alcohol abuse.
Mm-hmm.
And it plays a big role in holding people back. I'd love to hear a few minutes on what you've experienced, what you've seen, and what you teach about alcohol.
So my views are going to be a little contrarian to some people and it might offend them. So I am a recovered alcoholic. I'm going on 12 years of sobriety. But before that happened, I struggled for 15 years before I was able to put the bottle down. I'm 47 years old now. Before I turned 30, I'd been arrested and convicted of 4 DUIs, driving under the influence. I was a mess. I was a bartender and a personal trainer. So while I was still in shape, I was drinking all my problems away. And this goes back to stuff that happened when I was a child, and I was able to figure out why I was drinking. But it was because I just felt unseen. I felt unheard. And in order for me to try to forget about those deep seated childhood issues that I hadn't worked out yet, I would try to drink away my pain and I damn near drown my life. And it was difficult for many, many years, many, many years. But now that I've sobered up, a lot of people ask me, how did I do it? Well, I never went to AA. And this is the part that some people might not like. But the reason why I didn't go to AA was for this specific reason. 2 sentences. Hi, my name is Clif, and I'm powerless over alcohol. There are 2 words in each sentence. I am. I am are the 2 most powerful words in the English language because everything that you say after that is a declaration of who you are. It's your identity. So if I say that I'm an alcoholic and if I say that I'm powerless over alcohol, that means that I am teaching my conscious mind and my subconscious mind, I'm training it that I'll never be able to break this addiction. So that's why I've never gone to AA. I like everything else that they do, but I refuse to say that. And the reason why is, well, actually, I went to AA when I was court ordered to go, and I would see guys that were 20, 30, 50 years sober, I'm an alcoholic, I'm powerless over alcohol. No, you're not. Haven't touched a drop in 25 years. You're look like you have a good control over it to me. You look like you're sober to me. But if you keep telling yourself that, you are now forcing your subconscious to believe that this is, you're pigeonholed and you're stuck in this mindset for the rest of your life because you say it over and over and over and over and over again. So that's why I never used it. But as an example, and I tell this to people all the time, and I'll try to go through this as quickly as possible. The way that I sobered up is, have you ever used whiteout on a piece of paper and then to cover something up, put it on a copier, and then the whiteout wasn't completely dry, and then you left whiteout on the copier, and then everything else had a shadow after it? Okay. So my brain was that photocopier. The whiteout was the alcohol, and the paper that would go through it were my thoughts. So I had to it took me 2.5 years of going through different masterminds, going through different courses, therapy, reading books, everything that I did of like disconnecting with who I was and becoming who I am, to scrape that whiteout off of the glass in the copier, which was my mind, in order for all of those thoughts to come out without that shadow on it. So it took me doing all of that. I spent a lot of money. Spent a lot of time finding out who I was and what was going on in here and also in here. And I had to fall on my face in order to be humbled enough for me to ask for help. There's the ego part that most people get stuck on. And in order for me to finally ask for help, then to turn my life around 180 degrees, I don't know why people say 360, because it takes you right back to where you were, but 180 degrees and come back away from that struggles that I had. And I'll tell you that rock bottom is a solid foundation to rebuild your life upon.
That's fantastic.
Just I'm not a huge fan of the term rock bottom because it's really what I call a transitional moment.
Mhm.
Because like what the term rock bottom, most people could have another rock bottom, right? Could keep going. And some people do when they die. From these types of things. But I I believe that I've something I preach to young people is that you don't live in the moment, you live for the moment. Okay, so from your view and what you went through, because I had a similar situation going through my divorce, where I played that victim role for a couple of years, and all of a sudden something happened, and I just decided, hey, I don't want to be like this anymore, right? So what causes that moment, that transition where you just wake up one day and it is just, I can't do this anymore. I can't live this life. I've got to start something new. And then for people that I know, like yourself and myself and other people that I've talked to about this issue, once that trigger happens, it's like phew, their life just becomes, a pathward up. The climb reestablishes. And to be honest with you, most people that have suffered some really devastating defeats and some losses have a tendency to live a more extraordinary life than people that don't. So, what can you define what that thought process was in that moment that made that transition for you?
Well, like you said, the people have a better life after that is because they've had to struggle through the adversity to come back from the edge of the abyss. And doing that, they're able to look inside and figure out who they are and do the work that most people are refusing to do. People like to think that just because you're getting older, you're getting better. You have a choice. As you age, you can either age like milk or you can age like a fine wine. So when we're forced to put our backs up against the wall and go through something traumatic, in order to come back from that, it's who you become through the journey of coming back is what allows people like us to make it in life versus to have the weight of the world just crush you.
Jerry, for me, one of the words that comes up, I ask that same question, Jerry, a lot. One of the words that comes up, and I can relate to this myself, is the word disgust.
Yep.
Sometimes you are just disgusted with the way something is, and you say, I've got to change this. I mean,
Hmm.
you
Yep.
and I don't use the term rock bottom, but I do think I think disgust is just a nasty, ugly word. When you get disgusted with your the way you've let yourself go, disgusted with how much you're drinking, disgusted with the way you're treating your wife. When you get fully disgusted with something, for me, that's when you make a change.
All right.
Hmm.
Yep.
My moment of disgust was almost 12 years ago. I went on a business trip. And when I went on the business trip, I was one of the top producers in the company that I went on. And I knew people from all over the US, and I was trying to manage my drinking at the time. And I thought I had done a good job of it because I only drank when I was out of town, not when I was home, because things would get out of control with my friends and going out. And I ended up in Louisville, Kentucky, St. Patrick's Day weekend, 2014. And a friend of mine who I knew online bought me a couple of shots, and then like they just kept coming. He didn't stop doing it, and I just didn't have the whereabout to tell him to stop and say I wasn't drinking anymore. And then I had my one final blackout in Louisville, Kentucky. I was stumbling around a city that I'd never been in before. I could have gotten hurt, could have been in the hospital, could have died, could have gotten hit by a car. Who knows what could have happened? All I know is that I somehow made it back to my hotel room. I spent all night long throwing up in the bathroom, and I missed the event that I was there for. And that was the next day when I woke up and I finally sobered up from that. I was like, I'm never drinking again. And I'd said that before because like I said, I've been a bartender for many, many years. And I've said that before. A lot of people have used that. Oh God, it was a rough night. I'm never drinking again. But I actually meant it that time. And no one believed me. Oh yeah, sure, sure. Because I was the party guy. I was the bartender. And going on 12 years now, almost, well, 11 and a half, they are now like, wow, you really said you weren't going to do it anymore and you stuck to it. And I've helped literally hundreds of men and women to cut back their drinking and dozens to quit entirely now. And all I do is tell my story.
I want to emphasize that right there. And I'm going to tell the people who are watching us today, listening to us, you need at the very least to follow this man on Facebook because he gets on Facebook. Well, he gets on Facebook every day and Instagram as well. He's everywhere, by the way. Again, I'm going to list all his socials in our show notes. This guy gets on a roll about alcohol, about nutrition. And if you know anyone that's struggling with alcohol, or if you are struggling with alcohol, you just need to, this is the guy you want in your ear. And having Clif in my ear for the past year or however long it's been, I gotta say, and but also Jerry, because Jerry's quite an inspiration to me for his health. I gotta say, I've made some health changes, and I'm happy about them. I'm excited about them. They're lifestyle changes, and I haven't pulled the trigger yet on bulking up like Cliff, but it could happen. It could happen one day. Cliff, I want to thank you for your participation. Jerry, you want to say anything to Cliff
No, I just
here?
wanted just to emphasize again, for anybody that, has any type of addiction problem, Cliff's a great resource. And here's why I believe that. Health and wellness is the easiest way to fix what's wrong with you, right? Because and the reason I say that is because it's easy to track. That it, small regimented disciplines, because if you've never exercised, you've never walked, never got out and did anything, you literally are going to start with just getting up every single morning at X time. You have to develop some type of regimented system. And when you engage in, a regimented, system and you do something daily, after, it depends on how long you haven't been doing it, but I mean, for some people it's 30 days, some people it could be 6 months, whatever it is. But when you discipline yourself to do those things physically and you start taking care of your health and you have your diet and nutrition, the other things are a lot easier to maintain your discipline with. So the reason Cliff's a great resource is because he has the background in the drug and rehab, um, you know, uh, education, and he's a fitness personal trainer. So those two together, if you're looking to make a serious change in your life, that's the guy.
I'm telling you, you got to follow him on Instagram and Facebook. Just get that introduction. A little bit of Clif goes a long way. I'm telling you. You know, Jerry, we could go on a couple of these other dream stealers, but I feel like we have made a really significant point right here. I mean, I think we should just stop this one right where we are. We've had powerful words from Clif on alcohol. We heard about your situation of dream stealer with your golf by trying to incompatible goals. You're partying and you're chasing the ladies, which we've all done a little bit of that, but it can get in your way if you're not careful. That's for sure.
Yep,
So
absolutely.
I'm going
Yep,
to say
go ahead.
we continue on with dream stealers in our next episode. We get into the habits, we get into the relationships that are hurting us, and we also take a deep dive into yourself as a human being. Are you good with that?
And that all works on my end.
Clif, let me thank you. Let me thank you very, very much. And yeah, you haven't heard from the end of me, or you haven't heard the end of me, Clif. I'll be knocking on your door more and more. I can tell you that right now. I want to thank everybody for checking us out. We'll be back in another week or two with number 3. We hope you've enjoyed this and gotten something from it. And again, in the show notes, you'll find references and links to everything Clif. And Clif, by the way, Clif, you spell it CLIF. Where'd you lose an F along the way?
My name is Clifton, Clifton, not Clifford. So I spell it that way.
I love it. I had to ask. All right, gentlemen, thank you both so very much. Look forward to talking to you soon.